So the first thing I'm going to do is apologize for the quality of my voice today. I don't know what's going on, but I feel okay. And hopefully the information will be so interesting that my annoying voice won't be so annoying. So anyway, I am Dana Stengel and I am a biology teacher. And basically I got a little bit frustrated with the California state curriculum and the fact that they don't talk about how to coexist with wildlife. And so in addition to what I do in the classroom, I really like to spread the information about who is surrounding us, what are their habits, and what can we do to either encourage them or discourage them, depending on what works for us, depending on whether we have pets, etc. And I love that this is a gardening group. I think this is not the first time I've spoken to this group, actually. I think I was here a couple of years ago and I had a great time because you all are so familiar with your backyards and with being outside a lot and with some of the critters that are out there and some of their habits. So I really look forward to this presentation. And we're going to focus on some things that might ring true for you when you hear words like attractants and deterrents, because that's basically what this all boils down to at the end of the game. So let me go ahead and share my screen because I have a super cool slideshow to share with you that sort of illustrates some of these things that I want to talk to you about. Oh, and actually, before I do that, I'm going to tell you also just really quickly about my organization. So we are a very small organization. We're in the Sunland area, and we sort of started this mission as a result of a mountain lion being killed in our area by Fish and Wildlife. After that happened, the law changed, and so now mountain lions aren't just being killed as easily anymore. But it was in that moment that I was like, wait a minute, I didn't realize a mountain lion could be in my backyard. The person who called 911 didn't know what to do. So what do we do? And how does that work? So I learned more about it, and this is what, and I realized also, even bigger than a mountain lion, people get freaked out when they see coyotes in the street, right? We don't know what to do about a coyote. Nobody ever talked to us about that. So I realized we have a whole world of wildlife that we call varmints, that native plants are weeds, native animals are varmints, and I feel personally like that needs to change. And if we maybe understand a little bit more about them and what they're doing there, then maybe we will be able to get along better. And so my organization does presentations like this, and we do field trips where we take people to see native wildlife in the wild. And usually as accessible as we can, because I don't feel like everybody should have to, travel for a 10-mile hike to be able to see wildlife. So, so you can look on our website to see the kinds of trips that we offer, but that's one of the things that we do. We also do backyard consultations. So if someone's having an issue with wildlife, we will go there and explain to them maybe why it's going on and give them some humane alternatives to sort of discourage the wildlife from that area. So that's another thing that we do. We work with people on reinforcing their chicken coops when they have a bobcat problem. These are some real issues. And so we're sort of trying to fill in a gap. Like, I don't know who else is doing this. I don't think anyone is. And so we just want to be sort of a local, east side of LA area kind of wildlife go-to. We go to all the conferences, we talk to the PhDs, we get the information, and then we try to bring it back in an interesting way to the public. So you'll have to let me know how that goes today. I'm going to go ahead and start in with our presentation. And again, if you have any questions as we go, please throw them into the chat because I love questions. So my name is Dana Stengel. I'm an urban wildlife specialist, and I am the founder and the executive director of Taringa Ranch. That's our website. If this is interesting to you, you can join our email list by going to the website. There's a link there. All right, let's talk about wildlife, right? What is our relationship with wildlife? What is it we think of when we think about wildlife? What is it we're hoping for if we're going to have a relationship with wildlife, right? And so when I thought about this, these were some of the images that came to my mind, right? Like, don't we all? And I'm going to tell you right now, I can get on Facebook and I can find social media of people with, you may have seen these, they've got the ring that's like a hummingbird feeder, right? This is what we're going for. We're going for the Cinderella thing, which, in that moment for the person feels amazing. But personally, I feel like we need to think about at the end of the day, how it's affecting the wildlife that's showing up for that drink. What's in that drink, right? Is that good for them? Is it good for them to not be afraid of people? What's the neighbor like? These are some other images of how I grew up thinking and hearing and seeing about wildlife, right? Out of these three images, one is a native animal, right? We always have these, we're going to get to it later, but we're literally marching in the streets about elephants while our own mountain lions are on the verge of extinction here in Southern California. They are genetically becoming inbred because of our freeways, and it's a real problem, right? Now we're having a crossing, which we'll talk about later too. But these, elephants are awesome, but our own mountain lions are very, very important to our ecosystem. So we're going to talk about that. But again, these are the images. These are the things we think of. These are the relationships we all wish we could have, right? Well, not maybe not all of us, but some of us, we want to be so close to it. We want to be so close to it. And then, of course, my all-time favorite, right? I can't talk about people loving their wildlife without including these two, because that's fun. All right, so who are we surrounded by? Who are we going to find in that garden? We've got wood rats. We've got ground squirrels. I know how much you love those. You've got pocket gophers. You love those more. I don't have a picture here of your favorite mole. I know he's on your list. And bunnies. I should have put the bunny here too, because, the bunnies. I'm just going to tell you right now, I gave up trying to garden because of the bunnies. Can't do it. They win. You got the alligator lizard up here. He's amazing. And he actually fights Lyme disease. This guy, not only does he eat ticks, but if a tick lands on him and starts eating his blood has this protein in it that will kill the Lyme disease, and that tick won't be carrying Lyme disease anymore. What? I know. Your native wildlife, literally in your backyard right now. And then the mule deer, there he is. Love him, her baby. Okay, and then another aspect of this wildlife that people don't always remember are the flying ones, right? We have these birds. We have all different kinds of birds. We have birds of prey like red-tailed hawks and Cooper's hawks. We have owls. We have great horned owls. We have barn owls. We have screech owls. We have scrub jays. Oh, the scrub jay, you've heard the scrub jay, and you've heard the mockingbird too. And then, of course, everybody loves the hummingbird, and we're going to be talking about the hummingbird later, especially because everyone loves the hummingbird so much. Okay, in this, I'm not sure why I put this right here, but this is, like a reality of wildlife on the urban interface, which is where we all are. And this is the kind of wildlife that I focus on. Don't bring me out to the mountains. I'm focused on the city and how how does our wildlife behave here as a result of our actions, and what can we do to make that a better interaction. So this, not such a great interaction. He's already got a collar on. So if you have heard about P22 in Griffith Park, the reason his name is P22 is because he's a puma. It's one of the other names for mountain lion or cougar. And so this puma here, I'm not sure what his number is. But actually he's probably not even part of ours. He's probably a whole different study. But in the Southern California, Santa Monica Mountains area, ours are numbered in the order that they are caught and collared. So we have a number of them and they are all interesting with such interesting stories. And you can look that up online with the National Park Service. Okay, so we're gonna start in with one of my favorites, the opossum. This guy's super misunderstood. When people see him, they see the ratty tail first, and they're like, oh, it's disgusting. It's probably carrying a gazillion diseases, and whatever, call the exterminator. I can't, right? Every now and then, the kind of call I will get is, this guy's on the fence, the dog's barking at it, I don't know what to do. Or better, this guy's on the ground, I think my dog attacked him, he's not moving, I don't know what to do. So first of all, let's understand that this guy doesn't carry disease. His blood temperature is so low that he cannot even carry something like rabies. It won't live inside of him. And he is, pretty clean. These guys are North America's only marsupial. That's right. He's a marsupial. This guy's super amazing and deserves a little more respect. They're also one of our most sort of prehistoric animals. Like, they really look the same way they did a really long time ago. And they have an interesting adaptation for survival in that, well, they have a few. One is they'll have a lot of babies at the same time. That's one. And the other is that they don't live very long, right? Crazy adaptation for survival. They're just not meant to live that long. A super old opossum would be like 3. So they don't see very well. They don't hear very well. They're very nocturnal. And the reason we see them squished on the road so often is they're not very fast. And again, their senses they're sort of bumble through life. And those babies, sometimes people will find a baby because one will fall off their back while they're carrying them around. And they have another super cool adaptation for survival. We'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so also these guys eat ticks. And so they're also sort of a good defense against Lyme disease. And they're really good, like little maids of nature. They go around, they eat all the dead things they can find. They love to scavenge. Here's a great picture of one of them with the babies on her back. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not as many babies as she started with. They're so cute. I can't believe people don't think they're cute. This is one of nature's most amazing adaptations for survival, in my opinion. This guy, when he gets stressed out, he has an involuntary response. A chemical in his body says, shut it down, and he's down. He is literally unconscious and he looks dead. This is actually a really pretty one because he's not all covered with dog slobber like they usually are, but they're not doing it on purpose. They just sort of, it's involuntary and it lasts. It's sort of a torpor, and it can last from like 1 hour to a few hours. So what I say to people, if they encounter this in the yard, before they just scoop it up and bury it or throw it away or whatever, leave it there for a few hours, bring the dogs in, go out by yourself in a few hours and see if it's still there. There's a very good chance it won't be. And some people will say, but Dana, it stinks. That's the best part of this adaptation, is while they're under, their body is emitting the stench of death to throw predators off and deter them. That's right. So this guy, he's kind of simple, but he's also super amazing. Now, this is the opposite. This is the opposite. Everyone looks at this guy and they're like, I want two. Can I adopt one? Can I dress them in kids' clothes? They're adorable. I can't believe how cute they are. Let's encourage them. And I'm just going to tell you right now, this guy is more likely to carry diseases. He's very, he's warm-blooded, and he's really good at carrying zoonotic diseases as well, like typhus. So if this guy's pooping in your backyard, you want to discourage that. And I'm going to talk about how later. Of course, he's doing a great job in nature. He's got a lot of things to do. He's managing that little ecosystem, but you don't want him right where you are. Obviously, you don't want him in your attic, which is one of their favorite places to be. And we'll talk about why in a minute. And you don't want him creating a latrine in your backyard, which is something they will do. Sometimes they're just passing through. No big deal. If you know that raccoons are passing through your area every night, it's not a big deal. That's what they do. If they've decided they like an area and they're kind of hanging out there pretty regularly, and like I said, either leaving scat or destroying part of the house, then you need to deter them, and we'll talk about how. And these guys, of all the ones to deter, are the hardest because they're the smartest. Not only do they have a big brain for the size of their body, but they also have a thumb. They can unscrew things. Whatever plan you have in place, they're really good at foiling it. And maybe the first time you saw them, they were by themselves, but the next time you see them, they're going to be with like 6 of their biggest friends. Like they're wild. They are absolutely wild. And again, everyone's like, they're so cute. Oh, no, my God, all of them. I'd rather have a baby mountain lion. Okay, so let's talk about these raccoons. So they are omnivores. They love to eat all kinds of food. They love vegetables. They love flowers. They love fruit. They love meat. They don't really hunt, but they will. They'll take eggs out of nests and stuff. If they can get it, they will. They're very opportunistic, and they can eat so many different things. These guys will come if you're feeding feral cats at night, right? They'll come for whatever's left over. They'll get in the trash. That you can see in this picture, it looks like someone's feeding them. I have had someone come to me and tell me that they are literally feeding the raccoons in their backyard because they know their neighbors hate them and they're afraid that they'll go over there. And so they're trying to keep them there. That is the worst thing you can do. I understand where that feeling comes from, but when you're feeding them, you're inviting them back to your home. And they don't know that they don't understand your fence. They don't see that your neighbor's house is a different house. They don't understand that. They're going to keep coming back to that area and looking around that whole area for all the resources they can find. So that person is still inviting them into their own yard. There's those little hands. They'll unscrew it. These guys, you can catch them in a humane trap and they can let themselves out before you get there. True story. So they're super agile. They're arboreal. This is something a lot of people don't know. They could live their entire life in the canopy of the tree, which in my opinion, they fill the niche. They fill the niche here of a primate, right? We don't have any primates here in North America, but these guys fill the same. They're not related. I'm not saying they're related. Don't message me about that. But they fill the same ecological niche. So, and they're super social. Like I said, if you come upon one, tomorrow, they'll bring their buds every time. There you go, every time. And they're always bigger than people anticipate. What? Raccoons in the attic? Can that fat thing get through that little slat? You betcha. You betcha. And why is he there? Look behind you. Don't look behind you. You're just going to see a wall. Look behind him and you're going to see a wall of trees. right? So he came from the tree onto the roof. So when the fire department says, keep the trees away from the roof for fire, guess what? You're also doing it to deter raccoons and squirrels and anything else. So usually, and I'll tell you, when I do consults about something in the roof, 99% of the time there's a tree that's really adjacent to that roof. So that's a super preventable issue. But then I have to say to myself, why are they there? So I can get this mama to take her babies out of that attic herself. And then I close it up. I don't have to trap her. I don't have to engage with her. And I have to keep in mind that this is her neighborhood. This is where she learned to be a raccoon. Like I said before, how social are they? So people, when they have this situation, they will call the exterminator. The exterminator will generally lie to them and tell them they're going to move it. If they did move it, it would be illegal. That's not what exterminators are licensed to do. But two, if they moved it, it would be put in a place, even if it's in the most amazing location on earth with water and food and everything. They don't have the social relationships, number one. They don't know where the shelter is. They don't know where the food is. They don't know where the water is. They don't know these things. It's not their home. What if I dropped you off in Bakersfield without your wallet, your phone, or your car? What would that be like? Well, it's a city and you're a human, so you should be fine, right? So what my organization does, and this is the latest science, is we deter from the immediate vicinity. That means that this guy can make decisions on his own. Okay, guess what? That attic is no longer fun. I'm going to get out. I'm going to take my babies to our other place that we hang out, which is a tree over there. Or maybe it's, I don't know where it is, but when they grew up in the neighborhood, they know where their alternatives are. And because they're so opportunistic, they have so many alternatives. So we need to trust the fact that this is wildlife and they will work it out. And we don't humanely trap things anymore. We deter. Okay. Bobcats. A lot of people have these guys. And if you raise chickens, you're inviting them. They love the chicken buffet. People will ask me, but aren't they nocturnal? Not on the urban interface. They are opportunistic. They're not as opportunistic as a coyote. You're not going to see them to the extent that you see coyotes. There are certain urban ecosystems they cannot survive in because they're obligate carnivores, which means they must eat meat. So unlike the coyote, who can live on a variety of things like the raccoon, bobcats, they're basically rodent hunters, which is why, on the urban interface, they can kind of do pretty well. But they really do love chicken. Often when people call me about a problem, it's a bobcat when it's a chicken. And usually it's very easily solvable. We just build a better coop, as crazy as that sounds, and create a protected area for the chickens to be out during the day without being out during the day. So bobcats, they're relatively the same size as coyotes if you haven't seen one before. They love rodents and like rats and rabbits are probably their biggest food item in the wild. They're not as social as other animals. They do have their babies with them for a while, and they do overlap territories with other wildlife. They are just, imagine how wildlife can smell things. They're very good at avoiding each other. Oh, coyote was just here 5 minutes ago. I think I'm gonna go that way instead, right? So this is what they do in your neighborhood all the time. And for all of those people who are sure they've seen a mountain lion, most of the time it is not. Most of the time it's a bobcat they saw. They didn't expect to see such a big cat because it's much bigger than a house cat. And the thing about mountain lions is that they're super nocturnal in the LA area. because the humans are so active until such late hours, they don't come out until later. You know, a wild mountain lion might come out at 10 p.m., but an LA mountain lion might not come out till midnight. And a wilder mountain lion might stay out till 6 a.m., but an LA mountain lion might be done by 4 a.m. So they have to change their activities based on the fact that they're sharing the city. So when people see the mountain lion, it's always during the day. That in itself, unless he's sick or there's a problem, tells you that it's probably not a mountain lion. But it has happened. I'm not going to say it hasn't happened. It's definitely happened, but it's just not the norm. And if you've ever seen the cool lynx from Canada with the cool ear tufts that we love, he's just sort of more a dramatic version of a bobcat, but they're cousins, they're related, they fill the same ecological niche in both places. Yeah, the Canadian guy, just because he's from a colder climate, so he needs to have longer hair and a bigger body. So he's just a little bigger paws for that snow. He's a little more dramatic. And, you know, roughly 30 pounds. And, you know, this obviously is not from our area, but this is, I mean, it might look to you from the outside like, oh, that's crazy. Who would do that? But like, this is what happens. Like you get a couple chickens and then suddenly you have a few more and you don't think it's really an issue. And so, you know, anyway, this is how it will look. And, you know, you can see that it would be easy to fix this, right? And so I just make things tighter. Chicken wire is never an option. I don't know what chicken wire exists for, but it's not very safe for anybody. I'm a hardware cloth kind of gal. And I'm also a double fence kind of gal. If I had a situation like this, the first thing I would do would be to reinforce it with the hardware. And then the second thing I would be is put the whole thing in a chain link enclosure, because a lot of these animals that would want to get to a chicken have arms that could reach through certain places. And so if you create a gap between where the chicken can be and where the predator can be, they can't ever reach each other, even if the chicken falls asleep next to the wall of the enclosure, right? So here's a better example. And again, I like this one much better, even though it's still using chicken wire, you can see, and it doesn't have the outer enclosure that I would also like, but it's way better. Also, look here though, doesn't look like it has any protection against a digging animal. And I would fix that. A lot of these animals can dig very quickly to get in. Okay, coyotes. I have a presentation that's 100% about coyotes. I could talk about these guys all day long. They are, in my opinion, the most interesting urban wildlife we have and the most misunderstood. Oh, let me play that. I just have a little introduction to my little coyote segment. Anyway, a lot of people hear that and it puts fear into their heart. They believe that that means that there's a murder going on, and because this, you'll hear this, right? And then you'll hear like what sounds like 100 of them. And you're like, oh my goodness, how is there all this wildlife around me that I can't see? Number one. And number two, what the heck are they howling about? Must be something scary. It isn't. These guys are a lot like their wild cousin, the wolf. They each have a different voice. When they howl, they're checking in with their cousins. Hey, Jenny, how's it going? Over here. Woo. It's just checking in. It's a social thing. And do they do it more when there's a full moon like their wolfy cousin? Yep. When there's more light, they're out later hunting and being social and doing other things that you could only imagine a wild canine would do. And let's remember, they are canines. So when we think about their behaviors, let's think about, if it was a dog, how would we interpret that? Instead of, it's a 80-pound coyote coming right for me, how do I interpret that, right? It's not 80 pounds, it's 30 pounds, and it's a canine, just like your dog, which means he's smart, and he's curious. So when we use the word bold, I propose we instead use the word curious. So what do these guys eat? Are cats on the menu? So if the cat or small dog is left outside without being supervised, you put it on the menu without knowing. Most people have no idea. They don't see the coyote in their area. They assume there are no coyotes in their area. I have an interesting bit of information for you. There are coyotes denning in the parking structure of Soldier Field in Chicago. That's right. So they are living successfully, super successfully, among the high rises in Chicago. So that means that someplace like LA, easy peasy. So we need to not be posting on Nextdoor every time we saw a coyote somewhere. I mean, it's great, it's good to know, but what we maybe should be doing instead is assuming there's a coyote in the area at any time. They're not nocturnal, they're super opportunistic. They love the cat food and they love the feral cat. They'll take what's there when they show up. That's how they are. A lot of people talk to me about fences, walls. This is one of the #1 questions that come up at my presentations. What about my wall? I want to tell you all about my wall. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not ever, not, well, there's one exception. There's no wall. Because every time you put in your fence or your wall, you put in trees, you put in bushes, you put furniture up there, you create a stairwell. And guess what? So did your neighbor on the other side. Animals don't recognize these barriers. It's just another natural barrier to them. I mean, so you have to, again, assume that they can get over your fence, unless you and your neighbor have both cleared your fence on either side for about 30 feet, and your fence is probably 20 feet tall. And even then, flying predators could come in to get your chihuahua, because we have great horned owls and we have golden eagles, right? And we have red-tailed hawks. So, but you're not without hope. We'll talk about it. There are people who will say, we've got a troublesome one here. We're going to have to trap him. We're going to have to poison him. We're going to have to, I don't know, people think of crazy things. But what happens is when you take one out of the pack that they weren't expecting, the next birthing season, instead of having 2, they're going to have more like 12. That's what coyotes do. So better to train the ones that are in your area by humanely hazing them when you see them than try to take one out because you think he's a problem because he was too curious. And that's, you know, so we'll talk about that in a minute. What's in a yip? We already talked about that. That's their way of communication. If they're hunting, the only thing you're going to hear is the quick sound of an animal being killed. It's very quick. Black bears. We have black bears in the Pasadena area. They are smaller than you think. The average female black bear is about 120, 130 pounds. The average male black bear, 180, 200. We just think, oh my gosh, they're giant and they're furry. Their favorite foods are sweet. They love fruits. They gather all day. They scavenge. They do hunt, but it's not like, they're not like walking through the forest, like trying to hunt everything. Black bears are not the same as grizzly bears. Grizzlies were native here. We extirpated them by the 20s. These guys came in their place. They are not, I've seen them walk right by horses. I've seen them walk right by dogs. I'm not guaranteeing that there's not a crazy one out there or that there aren't situations, but in general, they could be in someone's backyard, swimming in their pool and out by morning and nobody would ever know the difference. Now we have Ring cameras. That's the good and the bad of it all. But they've been there doing this the whole time. Sometimes we just see them. Okay, and they're called black bears, but they could be any color. They could be reddish, they could be blondish, different, I don't know why, but a brown bear is a grizzly bear. A black bear is our kind of bear that we have here. And they're very different animals. I wouldn't be talking about a grizzly bear this way. I would say just get out. Wear a steel shell and get out if you're with a grizzly bear. But and then they have a very good sense of smell, which is why they wind up in people's homes. They're there for the refrigerator. They're also there for the antifreeze. Yeah, they like antifreeze. So not good. Ours don't really hibernate because it doesn't get that cold here. And of course, as the weather gets warmer, less and less. They slow down a little bit more in the winter, but ours don't really hibernate. And again, they're omnivores. They do eat meat, but they're eating a lot of sweet things. If you ever see one that has a tag, the tag is sort of the strike system. The tag means Fish and Wildlife got you once. Tag in the other year means Fish and Wildlife got you again. If Fish and Wildlife comes upon you and you have 2 earrings, unfortunately, you're going to be euthanized because now you're a problem bear. And they're just looking for water. Like, it's sad, it's hard. Okay, we're going to talk about mange. This is a really hard picture to look at, but this is the result of rodenticide. When you put out rat poison, it works its way up through the wild. I've only put it in my house. Well, the rat ate the poison in the house and then went outside to die. And then the raptor got it. And then somebody ate the raptor, right? And this happens a few times and it just boom, 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 all the way up. So this is a bear with mange. It's horrible. Bears. What could we do? What could we do to reduce some of the interactions? This guy here, he's got 2 earrings. That's sad. Somebody, like, there's not much you can do about that except try to keep him out. But in this case, we've got a bear butt sticking out of a tent. You know what to do about your food. And here we've got a super great bear box for trash. That's what they should look like in all of Arcadia, right? Why don't they all look like that, I wonder? Mountain lions, we also have them in our area. Our most famous one is P22 in Griffith Park, who literally has lived in, I think it's like the United States, like biggest urban park, if not the second one. And he lives right there along next to all of those humans who use that park every single day. And I just love to know that that's happening. It makes me sad that he's all encumbered by the freeways, but it makes me happy because it is proof every day that mountain lions are not coming for humans. Every now and then we get this story, oh, he was coming right for me. Oh, there's a social media. Look, he's chasing me on my bike, right? We don't know the whole story there, but we do know that there are very few documented attacks of mountain lions on human beings. They prefer to eat deer and elk, but if your big dog is outside overnight by himself, they will eat him too. Their job in nature is to keep the herd moving. They don't go for the weak or the sick like wolves do. They go for whatever they can find, but the deer smell them. And this is what stops the deer from eating all your roses. They smell the mountain lion, they keep moving. That's the beauty of the mountain lion. So, and if you think about it, people plant the flowers because they want to see the songbirds. So if the flowers get all eaten by the deer, then the songbird won't be there. So actually, the reason for the songbird is the mountain lion. Unlike the other wildlife I've told you about, they are nocturnal. It's very rare to see one during the day. They're not as urban as other wildlife, and there isn't really a fence high enough to keep them out. They use trees. They're very athletic. But at the end of the day, why does all of this matter? For me, it comes down to the phone calls I get where someone's dog was taken, and it's heart-wrenching. It's horrible. Nobody's dog, nobody's family member should ever have to go through that. And there are steps we can take to make it less likely. So what can we do? We reduce the resources, restrict the entry, we retrain the current population. In a nutshell, I feel like I'm running out of time, so I want to hurry. This enclosure down here, this is a mountain lion safe enclosure. This is hard chain link fencing. There's going to be shade on top. This can protect livestock from a mountain lion. This is an air horn. We usually pass these out at our events. You can wear it like a necklace, you blow it, and it's really, really loud, and it scares off anybody who's thinking about something because they're so confused by what's going on right now, which is the whole key. The food, if you're feeding feral cats, put the food out at 6, bring it in by 8. Don't leave it out all night. Of course, I would prefer you didn't feed them, but I know I can't convince you. So I'm just going to say, bring that food in at night so you're not feeding wildlife. And contain the trash, contain the trash, contain the trash. It's the #1 attractant. What are some other attractants? Water features. I don't think I have this slide on this slideshow. That's why I'm bringing it up now. Water features are attractants. Bird feeders are attractants. Leaving cat food out at night is an attractant. Leaving a pet unsupervised in the yard is an attractant. Fruit trees, those are attractants too. So again, cleaning up the mess around the home. Doggy door. What we don't think about with the doggy door is that we don't know when our dog is outside. If your dog is taken, or who else can come in through the doggy door. Leashes. If your dog is on your leash, he's less likely to get taken. If you, at night, I even suggest people use a leash in their own yard with the dog. Don't let the dog run to the back of the yard that you can't see, especially at night. Know that wildlife is around during the day, and take into consideration the average life expectancy of a cat that goes outside is 2 to 5 years. My last indoor cat lived to 25 or something crazy. So if they're your family member, maybe you could consider a catio. And know your fence. Don't be misguided about what your fence can and cannot do. The leash, and not the retractable kind. You cannot count on the retractable kind. It can fail. These are some examples of catios. Catios are wonderful ways to protect native wildlife and protect cats. And there, you can go from super simple to amazingly like a castle. This is an okay use for a doggy door. You can put a little tunnel that leads out to a protected area if you can't be watching. I know it seems crazy, but the wildlife is all there. This is an example of that finished pen that we looked at earlier. This is in Malibu, and this is actually saving alpacas from mountain lions. This is the fence one, right? We see these photos. The coyote can get on the roof. If the coyote can get on the roof, he can get to the backyard, right? This is a turtle. This is a snapping turtle climbing a chain link fence. If the snapping turtle can climb the chain link fence, who else can? Foxes actually have feet that turn both ways, and we have foxes, and they like smaller things. And then we have flying predators. This is the only fence I know of that keeps wildlife out, and that is why it's an ecological problem. But this is not what your fence looks like. Okay, and a big one, a big one, and this is especially for the gardening group too. Birds. Birds are a big part of our lives. Everybody wants the songbirds. People love to feed them. We want to encourage them in our yard. We want these things. We need to just consider some things. What are we feeding them? Are we feeding them things they would be eating in the wild? Does Niger seed grow here? What's it treated with? Is it GMO? I don't know. If it's hummingbirds, how often is that how much is that feeder being cleaned? We have all seen the mold. The mold can kill them. What happens if your situation changes? What if you can't get out there to feed them anymore? Is that going to affect them? Are they dependent on it? And for me, the biggest one is, what else are you attracting when you feed the birds? And I'm just going to spoil alert everything. My answer is to plant natives around your gardens, to plant the natives, because that's what they love. That's the best food for them, and it's the least maintenance on your part. There's that nasty feeder we've all seen. This is the reality of bird feeding. This is not the Cinderella story. This is the reality here. It brings the rodents. And then here we've got some other friends using our bird feeders. We've got rats and mice. We've got squirrels. We've got the raccoon. He's got himself wedged in there. I don't even know if he can get out. And then here's another of my favorites. This person did a great job trying to protect that bird feeder, but that bear is resourceful and he loves nuts and seeds. Again, with the rodenticide, it works its way up. This is the box. This is the dreaded box. The rat doesn't go in and die. The rat gets the bait, comes out, does the dance of death. This is P22 in Griffith Park when he had mange. Thankfully, we have cameras on him and we caught it and we made him better. He's okay now. But wildlife that doesn't have a camera on it will die. The percentage of the animals in and around the Santa Monica Mountains that have this rat poison in their system, well, that's just mind-blowing, isn't it? There's your chupacabra. This was a mangy coyote in Texas. There's a mangy bobcat there. This is what they look like. It's a skin disease and it will eventually kill them, but they'll come by your house for an easy meal first. A lot of times the animals that are closest to the yard are the ones that aren't feeling well. What is humane hazing? Quickly, I've got an umbrella. This is a perfect example of a humane hazer. I could carry this when I hike. It could be a walking stick. It could be shade, but it's a great humane hazer. So that's an example. You could have you could get a similar effect with a much smaller umbrella. Another example of a humane hazer is, actually, I'll show you when we turn this off. When I stop sharing my screen, I'll share this other one. But anyway, it's basically creating an unexpected situation. You're not hurting the animal. You're not touching the animal. You're not engaging with the animal. You're not getting him so mad that he wants to come after you. You're just scaring him. You're making yourself big, scary, unexpected. This is how we keep wildlife wild. And there's a variety. You can use your pot and pan. You can use your cowbell. You can use water. You can use anything. That raccoon in the attic, you know what I use? A light and a radio. That's it. I put a light and a radio in that attic. I tell them leave it on for 2 weeks. So they got plenty of time to get out of there and realize even when I check back, it's still a disco and I'm not raising my babies at a disco. It's that easy. That's humane hazing. These are examples of it. I just showed you the umbrella. We got some air horns here. We got a bike horn. We've got a little school bell. Anything that makes noise, anything that's going to surprise them. And guess what? This works on human predators as well. All these crazy things. They'd be like, what? Fight or flight? Flight. Every time. These are some examples of those humane backyard deterrents. This is motion sensing lighting. They're there because it's dark. Motion sensing sprinkler. They're there because it's quiet and safe. They get sprayed with water, they're out. This little device is a strobe light and a noise. You'd have to warn the neighbors in advance, but this is the kind of thing the animal will walk by and it'll go woo, and they'll just, that's it, they're done. Again, I'm not hurting them. I'm annoying them. This is what I excel at. And then down here, we've got some scents. You can use peppermint. You can use hot pepper. And in careful, sparing doses mixed with water and done only in outdoor settings, I have used ammonia. On moving wildlife, We talked about why earlier. They don't know where their resources are. They do have enemies. They don't know the area. They don't have a social network. This is not humane anymore. This is no longer considered humane. And that is my story. So we're going to take questions. And if you want to write down my website or my phone number or any of that, we are always here. This is what we do. We talk to all sorts of groups. If you have a homeowners association, that's one of my favorite groups to talk to because that's where we talk about backyards a lot. I have here an example of my motion sensing sprinkler. It's super easy. You literally attach it to the hose and it has batteries. So this one is, I love, and usually if I'm at a presentation, I'll pass it around and you can look at it and you can be like, oh, what is that? I'm going to take a picture. All of these things that I talk about, you can just buy on Amazon or at a camping store or whatever. They're easy. I think the point is just to understand that it's the element of surprise. I worked at a sanctuary with wolves and mountain lions, hands-on for many, many years, like 10. And that's what they teach you when you work with wildlife, is if you're ever in a situation where you're actually afraid in that moment, create an unexpected situation. Then in that moment of confusion, that's all it takes. And another thing, you know those social media videos where somebody's talking to a bear or a mountain lion, right? And you're like, okay, you're crazy. He doesn't understand you. You know what? He does understand you because he understands your intention. So if I see a coyote, I'm walking my dog and I see a coyote over there. My body language, it's telling you something and it's telling the canine something, right? We train dogs using body language, right? So if I'm walking my dog and I see the coyote over there, I could stop. Why is that coyote looking at me? I could just be kind of like weird and sketchy. Now, who looks sketchy, right? If I see the coyote over there and I'm walking my dog and I am strong and I am confident, and I'm like, boy, he's looking at me and he's making me uncomfortable. Guess what? That's what I'm going to do. So I'm the kind of person that has a lot of energy, right? I don't need a humane hazing device. I am a humane hazing device. Ask my kids, they'll tell you all about it. But some people don't have that. They really are. They really are. My God, that's a wild canine looking at me, right? And so having a whistle or having an umbrella or something like that, that can help you out. So, all right. And I'm going to start because I already have one question that came up. So I'm going to answer it and then I'm going to go to the question. I am interested in the topic of hoot owls as a way to discourage rodents in my yard and garden area. I heard that hoot owls are natural predators of rodents, especially rats that we are all plagued with. I love this question because I learned from this question because I had to look up a hoot owl. I was like, what's a hoot owl? I only know about barn owls and screech owls and great horned owls. So it turns out a hoot owl is another word for a great horned owl in our area. If you're further north, I think it's a barred owl, but down here, a hoot owl would be a great horned owl. And a great horned owl is actually our biggest owl down here. And the screech owl is like the littlest. He's like this little tiny cute little thing with the great horned owl. And then you've got the barn owl sort of in the middle, and then the great horned owl bigger. Great horned owl can and does take rodents and small mammals. And so does the barn owl. And so does the screech owl. They all take rodents that are their size. And they are encouraging owls and birds of prey is a wonderful way. It's the best way to deal with rodents in your area. And one way you can do that is you could get a barn owl box. Now, the reason we don't encourage the hoot owl or the great horned owl in the same way that we might encourage the barn owl is because the barn owl is smaller and less likely to take a small pet in the area. A great horned owl is a bigger owl, and there's a slight, I mean, they aren't going for it's rare, it's so rare, right? But the barn owl is the owl that is being encouraged. And right now there's an organization called CLAW, Citizens for LA Wildlife, and for a donation they'll get you a barn owl box. It doesn't come with the barn owl though, it's just the encouragement for him to come there. And just having trees is another great encouragement for birds of prey to be in the area. And the number one is just not using rodenticide, because as soon as you use rodenticide, that kills those raptors and it takes them a longer time to come back and repopulate. So that would be my answer on that. Do we have any other questions?
Dana, it looks like we have a bit of a follow-up to the hoot owl question. How can I keep a hoot owl as a pet?
Okay, so it's illegal in the state of California to keep any wildlife as a pet. But if you love wildlife and if you would like to help wildlife and get your hands on wildlife, I understand this. You need to go to the Pasadena Humane Society, and they have a wildlife unit. And I think that they take volunteers because baby season is in the spring. And like many rehabbers, you know, they're trying to take in these animals that need help, get them back to where they need to be, and get them back out into the wild. And they use volunteers to help feed them and take care of them. So that is one way to be able to interact with wildlife in a legal way where you're learning the whole time. So that's one suggestion. And by encouraging owls, where does that leave other birds like parrots and peacocks? That's a super great question. Well, for one thing, and it may or may not matter, but the parrots and the peacocks are sort of invasives. They came as pets and they got out into the world, and now they've sort of done their thing. But actually a native wildlife rehabber would not take them. If someone called and said there's an injured parrot, they would say, well, you'll have to call parrot rescue or the peacock lady, because they're not considered native wildlife. So I love native wildlife. I also understand that these birds are here, right? And we have to figure out how we're going to deal with them. I know that it's illegal to feed the parrots and the peacocks. I don't, as far as owls specifically, and parrots and peacocks specifically, you are not, in general, there's not a, owls are nocturnal and they're looking for rodents. Parrots and peacocks are diurnal and they're looking for seeds. Parrots are looking for seeds and fruits. The peacocks are looking for, the peacocks will eat small lizards and eggs and whatever. I think the peacocks might be a little bit of a hazard to the natural system because they will eat a lot of different things and they're big. But yeah, I don't think there's too much of an overlap between the owls and the parrots and the peacock, simply because one is nocturnal and the other two are diurnal and they have different diets. Any other questions?
I don't see any in the chat. We do have a small group at the moment, so if there's anyone that does want to turn on their mic at this time and just go ahead and ask a question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, we have one in the chat again. Margaret asked, I see lizards in my yard. Is there a way to encourage more lizards?
So lizards like to have places to hide. So if you have bushes, planting a native bush, you will have lots of lizards. And the other thing that I like to do in my yard is I have a little waterer. It's just a little bowl and it's got because you got to be careful leaving water out, right? You're encouraging things. But this is very small and it has some rocks on the bottom of it. And I fill the water just to the rocks and I have a little way for something to get in and out of it. And it's sort of for bugs and for lizards and stuff like that. And so another thing is to be careful about what you're using. Is your gardener putting any kind of chemicals down? That should stop. And how you water. If you water in a crazy way like I used to, you can literally like have them run out of your yard and not come back again. So now I've learned I sort of start at one end, slowly make my way over, you know, it gives everybody a chance to sort of readjust. And this is going to be revolutionary. If you're using a blower, or your gardener is, you're getting rid of all kinds of amazing things. Imagine what it's like if you're an insect and there's a blower, like everything. So it blows out ecosystems. And what do lizards eat? Lizards eat bugs. So don't put down bug poison. If you put down bug poison, you're also inadvertently hitting lizards with that. And also, yeah, just a lot of little bushes. They like to run from bush to bush. Okay.
What is diurnal?
So I chimed in a little late. My concern is that near the back of the foothills of Pasadena and Altadena, there are neighbors that leave food out for wildlife. We've left notes in their mailbox stating they are condemning the wildlife to potential death if they become a nuisance to the community. Is there a hotline that can be used to not have any retaliation from neighbors who insist that they are helping wildlife? There's not a hotline that I'm aware of, but Fish and Wildlife will come out, and there is a volunteer actually that's assigned kind of to our area. Pretty sure his name is Dave Dodge, but I can get the info. If you, I'm going to just type my personal email into the chat. That way, if you want to send me, if you message me, I can send you his phone number. I have to look for it. I'm not sure where it is right now. But you could also just call Fish and Wildlife and say, hey, this is my issue. We would love it if a volunteer could come out and maybe knock on a door and provide some information, because it's interesting. When the volunteer from Fish and Wildlife shows up, he's got a uniform on and people take him seriously, right? And he's just a volunteer. He's not really going to do very much, but he's all about education. So, and because it's not legal and because we don't want people to do it because of exactly what you said, I think that's the kind of work that he does. So either you could look that up or I can get that for you.